Glad to have you here alongside Michigan's retirement coach, certified financial planner, Mike Douglas. You can start the conversation about your retirement savings plan by visiting us at michigansretirementcoach.com. We also have links posted in the show notes. If it's easier, you can just click there. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Michigan's Retirement Coach on YouTube, and you can find us there. We have dedicated more than one podcast to our shared love of stand-up comedy.
Oh, yeah.
I was telling you about the new comedian that I've found, Zoltan Kazes. I think that's how it's Kazes.
Zoltan, if you see this.
Zoltan Kazes. Zoltan, if you see this, remember
fans.
Remember who was here in the beginning, because I think he is right on the brink of getting blown up because he's so good, and I've started to hear his name more. And it's like, you remember, I like to say, I knew Nate Bargatze when.
Yeah, I was going to say Nate Bargatze.
I've been following Nate for years. And now all of a sudden, like, everybody I know is like, man, we got Nate tickets. And I'm like, shut up.
Before it was cool. Before Tennessee Kid.
When his tickets were affordable.
Yes. Yeah. When it wasn't stadiums, it was just rooms.
Yep.
Yeah. There's not hate on Nate, by the way. But it's just
not
a
hate on
matter
Nate. We love Nate. It's hate on all the people that are coming to the party now.
Have you heard of this Nate Bargatze guy? Yeah. From stand-ups? Yeah, we've heard of him.
Knew him when nobody knew him. When he was just like doing there's a Netflix thing where it's like a bunch of them all at one time.
That's the stand-ups.
Yep. No, thank you. The stand-ups.
Yep. Cape Fear Serpentarium. We were there for it.
Sebastian Maniscalco. I was late to his party. I will say that. I didn't start following him till a couple years ago. He is out on tour right now and recently visiting one of the United States' most famous landmarks in New York City and was giving some feedback on the circumstances. Here is what he was saying.
In 1930, the Empire State Building started construction. It took 1 year to build this place. It took 2 years to remodel my kitchen. What the hell happened with construction over the last 90 years? Speed it up.
If any single person has an angry old man inner voice inside you that's speaking out, you will love Sebastian, because that's how he is.
Yeah.
On all of his stuff.
Yeah. That was funny.
I'm not sure how much it says, though. Should we be nervous that the Empire State Building was built in a year? That kind of worries me. Like that's fast.
I wouldn't worry about the construction. I'd worry about the work ethic of the current world versus the guys who sat on beams and ate their lunches.
Just looking at those pictures gives me panic attacks.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
I can't do
that. Nope.
Hats off to folks who are working hard in construction. We see the hard workers. We're worried about the ones that don't work that hard.
Yes.
And you working every single day with the hardworking folks of Michigan that are now getting to a place where they're like, I've had enough of the hardworking days. But I mean, is there any harder worker than the folks that have worked in the car industry in Michigan for their whole lives? And now they're getting to the point where they can finally call it quits, Mike. And for these folks, they are having to deal with another time concern. Forget about the 2-year kitchen remodel. What about a 20, 30, 40-year retirement for some folks? This is a real life thing for a lot of folks that are getting closer to retirement. It's going to become more and more of an issue of the fear of running out of money. So what do we need to know about preparing for longer retirements?
Yeah, when you look at your retirement, especially if you retire kind of on the younger side, we know, and like you mentioned, the auto space, we know that once you hit 30 years, your pensions take a big old jump. 30 years is kind of a magic number in the auto industry. Yeah. But when you retire, it used to be, the model was you retire at 65, you collect your Social Security, you get your gold watch, and you die by 67. And that was good for the pension people. It was good for the Social Security people. It was good for the employer. It was good for everybody but you and your family.
Yep.
Well, now things have flipped. We're retiring often younger. Now, people who are working later, it seems like those who are working to 70, oftentimes is by choice or by passion.
Yeah.
But we're seeing more and more where people are retiring younger and then just repurposing their lives into other things, which is great. But from a longevity standpoint, we have to make this money stretch a whole lot longer. So some little decisions we make, which don't seem like a big deal, in a long lifespan, they can matter. Are we claiming our Social Security benefits at the right time? Are we, maximizing that benefit between the two of us? Are we purchasing some element of protection against long-term care.
Mhm.
More and more. Holy cow. The amount of people going into long-term care and the cost of
Yeah.
long-term care is
Particularly for
rapidly
women
rising.
who are outliving men, and then the dementia fight. This is all real life stuff.
Oh yeah. And it's rapidly increasing and it's not going anywhere. So
Mhm.
having a plan for it. Now, do you buy long-term care insurance? I don't know. There are some kinds I like, some kinds I hate,
Okay.
but having a plan that you are comfortable with for long-term care and not just leaving it up to chance, know
Yeah.
the Medicaid rules of when Medicaid or Medicare will help with that versus when it won't.
Yeah.
Protecting your savings from market volatility and inflation. So there's a couple elements of that. Number one, volatility is not bad unless you're not prepared for it.
Right.
With negative volatility comes positive volatility. Bad
Okay.
markets turn into good markets. So that does help. So when people say volatility, sometimes I think it's a broad statement and that's unfair because we've had a lot of volatility in the stock market since 2007.
Yeah.
18 months of crash and then a hockey stick curve, ridiculous growth.
Yeah.
Both are considered volatility,
Okay.
and the one has heavily outweighed the other. But in retirement, we only really notice the losses a lot.
Mhm.
So we
Mhm.
want to protect against the negative volatility. And then also we have to have an inflation adjusted return in our portfolios. We need to understand that, man, I did 6%. Yeah, but inflation over the last 3 years was crazy. So you
Right.
didn't grow at the rate at which maybe you grew in the 2000s, in the teens because
Yeah.
the inflation was so low. So we want to make sure we're adjusting for those. And then the fourth one is really consider how your income comes to you in retirement. If you live a long time and you use a rule of 4%, and the rule of 4% is designed to make your money last 30 years,
Mhm.
but you retire from one of the big three at 55
Mhm.
and you get to 85 and the rule of 4% did its job. It got you 30 years and now you're out of money at 85. Like that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's why more and more, I actually just saw a video of Shaquille O'Neal, and he was talking about the benefits and how he's building his businesses. And he actually said, I'm building it on annuities. And I thought that was very interesting because he's not old.
No.
He's in a
How old is
regular
he? Is he in
place.
his late 50s?
He's no, I think he's in his early 50s.
Okay.
Be my guess.
I'm going to Google
Yeah,
it while you're.
yeah, because I think he got into the pros in the mid 90s.
Because I forget how young basketball players start.
Yeah,
52.
he's 52, and
Mhm.
so he's building. He says I'm building on annuities, and I thought that was interesting because annuities for a lot of people it's an older person tool.
Yeah.
And I do think it can be a good tool. There are some really bad ones though, where I feel like people just get robbed by annuities or annuity salesmen if they get the wrong kind.
That's right.
It's
Just like
super frustrating.
market investments, just like stocks. There
Yeah.
are great stocks and there are terrible stocks.
Oh,
Think
yeah.
about annuities the same way. There are great annuity options and there are terrible ones. So you
Yes.
have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the issue. And a lot of people who reach out to us, even from these channels, they say, "Well, can you take a look at the ones that I've got?" And we can do that because we at least know this space well enough. But you may want to consider, if the goal is to never outlive your income and your money, you may want to consider an annuity. It's not for everybody, and it's not necessarily the right recommendation. But that's why this isn't a recommendation. This is just a
Right.
you may want to consider, because if you retire at 55 and you live to 95, that's 40 years. And if you can put in a chunk of money, and that plus your Social Security plus your pension or whatever, that gives you all the income you'll ever need plus inflation, well, that's a good place to start. But it really comes down to building that out. And each person in each family is different. We had some clients who reached out and we went through some planning with them. And it was so funny because we said, well, let's talk about longevity in your families, this and that. He goes, oh, me, I'm here until at most 80, but you got to deal with her till she's 100. And he said it and she kind of chuckles or whatever else.
Like he's passing his wife over to you, being like, your problem.
Yeah. But he said, he's like, her family lives forever.
Oh,
My family
yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
So in that planning, he's like, we can't build out to 80. We have to build out to 100. And on top of that, whenever I'm gone, she'll be a single tax earner. All the rules will change for her. So all the planning had to come down to that type of a model, which said, hey, here's how we're going to build it. And for them, it's different than other people. So the old model, I could think of someone back like 8-9 years ago. They came in to talk to us and we said, let's look at your retirement plan. And it was something that an advisor built for him, and it only went 5 years out. And I was like, is there something we don't know?
Right.
Like, is there like a terminal illness
have you
here?
had-
Have you been given
yes.
a diagnosis?
Yes.
And it was crazy. And they're like, well, here's what we'll be in 5 years. I'm like, well, how about 20 years from now?
Right.
How about 10 years from now, 15 years from now? Well, every year we add a year on the back end of the spreadsheet. And I'm like,
That still doesn't make any sense.
it almost falls in space of like trying to 90-degree turn the Titanic once you're in the ice. It's like, you can't do that. You have to
Right.
start pivoting early so you can make small adjustments that over time put you where you need to go. And I think that's the problem of short-sighted planning, is that you're looking at a lifelong thing and looking at it in 3 to 5 year increments. Now, we want to measure the market in certain increments. We want to look at the scope of certain elements of a plan. We want to look at how our spending will be affected over the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But they need to continue on, all right? You don't just stop the graph at 5 years. You
Right.
map it out. And then that way, based on the way the next 3 to 5 years go, we adjust the rest of the picture. So I just think that sometimes is short-sighted. But that's the big things. Build some longevity tools. Again, how do you adjust your life insurance? How do you adjust your other insurances, your Medicare planning? Financial planning in life, it's a long perspective.
Yeah.
And we always say we want to use a long-term perspective to make short-term decisions.
Mhm.
So the stocks we buy, the tax decisions we make, it's all about the long-term planning. I think, unfortunately, too many people just say, I've got this portfolio and I'm going to buy Apple stock. I'm going to buy Microsoft. I'm going to buy the Magnificent Seven. I'm going to buy, whatever, and think that that's a retirement plan. Well, that's just some investments. That's stocks. Those are things you purchase. That's like saying, well, do you have a meal plan? Yes, I bought groceries this week.
Right.
That's not a meal plan. There's
Right.
no recipe. There's no connective tissue that takes all those ingredients and puts them together and makes something beautiful and delicious. A meal plan is the result of thoughtful consideration. What can I do with these ingredients? How can I make them work together? And then how can we make the best result that we want? That's what a meal plan does. That's what a recipe does.
Mhm.
And yet people buy groceries thinking, hey, I've got a meal plan or a recipe. And they
Mhm.
don't. So that's what you have to do, is understand the longevity, understand how things work. And retirement planning is that. It's having a plan that comes together and says, here's all these things come together. We haven't even talked about taxes, estate planning,
I know.
all the other things that come with it.
Mhm.
But yeah, longevity is an issue. And I do think it's funny, Sebastian says, let's speed it up, but our life experiences shape how we see things. And, I think it's good to start mapping out plans out that way.
Obviously, the idea of mapping out a plan, LifePlan Financial Design, is the name of your business, Michigan's retirement coach, because you're here to help coach us through this. The idea that you were talking about, just some of the things you said, and we haven't even gone into everything. Is, have you thought about Social Security? What about long-term care? Have you factored in volatility and inflation to your savings? And what about an income plan? Because, quick, guesstimate percentage of the folks that come into your office. Do you have a retirement plan? Yeah, let me see it. It's just a 401k statement, right?
Yeah. Or they've even been sold an annuity, but they don't know how it integrates with the rest of their plan.
Another thing about annuities, somebody that has an annuity, do people often think that once you get an annuity, that's it, you're done, you have to keep it, or you're stuck with whatever you got? Because how many people don't realize that, no, you can change out an annuity, you can, make it work. There are options within the annuity that even if you keep the same annuity, can you call that annuity company and rework some things if you need to? Is that an option in some cases? Yeah.
Yeah. I had someone who came in and they bought a joint annuity, and she was paying, it was a variable annuity. She was paying a joint rider fee. She was doing all these things. But before they ever had the chance to use it, her husband died. And she was paying a 1% per year fee on this annuity. It was a $400,000 annuity. Paying $4,000 a year for a joint income rider.
Okay.
She's a widow.
Right.
There's nobody to joint it with.
Right.
And so as a result, she's paying $4,000 a year for a benefit she can't even get. And so we said, we're going to call in and see if we can get this turned off as a joint rider. And then, so we did it. Yeah, we can eliminate that. Like, when you were told as an insurance company that the husband was dead.
It died.
They didn't remove the fee.
Why weren't you being proactive?
So we were able to eliminate that fee. So we went through all that. And even in that annuity, the income is a $400,000 an annuity, variable annuity that she had. And the fees between the sub-account fees, mortality and expense fees, the joint rider fee, there was one other, I can't remember the fee off the top of my head. It was specific. It was like a rider doubler for long-term care. Anyways, she was paying $18,300 a year in fees.
You're kidding. And she probably
on
didn't
$400,000. And the income she was going to get on the back end of it was $19,200.
So basically, she's like getting $1,000 off of a $400,000 investment.
And then the problem was, and if she said my whole goal is just strictly income, okay, well, I guess it doesn't really matter that the cash is going to go away because the income will carry on in perpetuity. But when she said, I've got two goals. Number one, I need this income the rest of my life because my husband passed and this is what I have. Number two, I'd like to leave something for my kids.
Yeah. Well, that changes everything.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
Well, now the problem is she's got $400,000 and $37,500 a year is coming out between income and fees.
Right. So how fast is that going to drain
12
out?
years.
Yeah.
And that's assuming a decent market. If the market tanks, her cash value could go because it was a variable annuity with no rider to keep it safe. And so the value can drop in a bad market. And so we went through and I was like, holy cow, like this is not a good fit for your actual goals.
Right.
So we went through and I said, and maybe, I don't know, we'd figure out what we can do. We went through, it was out of surrender. We moved it to a different one, an indexed annuity. Again, those aren't for everybody either.
Right.
But for her, she got $21,000 a year of income and the total fee was $4,400 a year. A way better setup for her.
And she didn't have to pay any more money.
Right. But she had been told, don't touch the annuity or you'll lose your income. So she was afraid. By a
financial person?
Yeah. By the person who sold it to her. In her mind, because they were like, don't take it and throw it in the market because you'll lose the income.
That is infuriating to hear.
Yeah. And so when we sat down, I said, I hear what they're saying. I'm just saying that there's probably a better way. So let's just see. Because when we first sat down, she goes, you actually can't touch this. Just look at my other stuff. Yeah. So that's fine. And then when I saw the product, I'm like, I know that's a fee heavy product. I've seen it plenty of times over the years. Yeah. And so I said, let me just do my due diligence and run a report. When it was all said and done, it's like, we got $2,000
she was like, get
more
me
of income.
out of there.
Yeah. $2,000 more of income for $14,000 less in fees. I was like, so now all of a sudden there's a greater chance that there will be something left at the end. There's not a guarantee. There's a greater chance that if something happens to you in the next 10 to 15, 20 years, that there will be some money left for your kids because we're not killing it off in fees.
Well, I mean, nothing is guaranteed, right? Like, nothing is 100%, but working to improve things, obviously goals.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and those are the things we see. So if you have an annuity and you want someone to bounce off of and say, hey, listen, am I stuck? Am I good? Am I bad? Because there's plenty of times people come in and I say, you're in the exact right spot. Don't touch it. Don't change it. Just leave it. Yeah. So there's ways you can do it both ways. But yeah, we'll definitely help people if they have any questions.
If you have questions, if you have an annuity that you want to have reviewed to ensure that it is doing the things that you want it to do, that you're not paying exorbitant fees on your hard-earned money, Mike is here to help do a full review of all the things that you have worked so hard to earn and save for your retirement, whether that's just a 401k, whether you have an annuity, making a social security strategy for that, for your retirement years. There's lots involved, but it all boils down to making sure that you're going to have the income that you need for longevity. Hopefully it's going to be a long and happy and healthy retirement. So let's make sure the money is coming in to support you while you're living those years. MichigansRetirementCoach.com is where to start the conversation with Mike and his team. There's a button right there at the top of the page. Start your retirement roadmap today. You click on that, fill out some information, and that's how you begin the conversation. We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can just click there or, again, find us anytime. MichigansRetirementCoach.com.